Michael Wilmington of the Los Angeles Times calls it a misfiring, undertone epic that takes its inspiration not from life or literature, but from a toy line and the cartoon series it inspired. Rita Kempley of the Washington Post said, "Little kids at play have come up with craftier plots, better characterization, and conceivably more spectacular effects, provided their mothers let them play with matches." And Bob Morris of the Orlando Sentinel thanks the lead actor for ensuring that there will be no more Rambo movies in the near future because he has obviously depleted the world's supply of body grease. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Masters of the Universe.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to Ruined Childhoods. I am one of your hosts, Dan Wiener, and with me is my brother and co-host, John Richardson.
Hey, everybody. How is everybody listening doing? All answer at the same time right now. Fantastic.
Excellent.
I'm doing well, too, the listener. I am so very excited to be talking about Masters of the Universe.
You know, my faux pas in the introduction was to not mention that this week's episode is a very special episode of Ruined Childhoods because of the place that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe as a property, as a franchise, as a story has in my heart. So just to review what we're going to be talking about, because we are going to go a little bit into the woods here with
Into the Woods,
by the way,
which has lots of weeds in it.
No, Into the Woods, which, by the way, if you live in the Seattle area and you are looking for something to do this weekend, this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, West Seattle High School is producing Into the Woods, the Stephen Sondheim musical, and I am very excited to see it.
Cool. I
know several kids who are in it, and I think it's going to be a fantastic production. So, but that's not the type of woods we're going to be getting into. I am going to be talking, like, we're going deep, like not like quite therapy deep, but as far as like that one toy, that one character that you just connect with as a kid. For me, and I was into Star Wars, and into Star Wars.
Yes.
Back when it was just called Star Wars, not Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, but that's just another story for another time. And I had all like Star Wars figures and loved it, and would role play and would, pretend to be Darth Vader, especially when I was in uncomfortable situations. But
you went for Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I was a Vader guy. But Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Darth Vader pretty soon, too.
Oh, yes, yeah. Definitely. But so with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, so the toys initially were released in 1982. And, I'm already getting into the woods before I forget. So what we're going to get around to is whether or not we think that there should be a brand new adaptation of He-Man brought to the silver screen, a long-awaited sequel to the 1987 film, or if anything at all should be done with this property.
Right.
Really.
And on the last episode, we did talk about a recent announcement that they have chosen an actor to play He-Man in
that is
a He-Man or Masters of the Universe reboot.
That's Noah Centineo.
Yeah. Do you know anything about him?
So he's in a Netflix movie coming out soon, I believe, called A Perfect Date. He was in...
like, what is it called? All the Boys I Loved Before or something like that. And,
To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And he was also just recently in something else. Why am I not finding my notes from the last one? But I don't know where my notes are from the last one.
He's like,
but anyway,
he's up and comer.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe the next Zac Efron or whatever. But anyway, I mean, I don't know much about him, but yeah, and we'll be addressing that, the plans for that film a little bit later, because there's a lot of history here. In fact, so to get back to my childhood, so John, He-Man joined the world as an action figure shortly before you did.
Before I joined the world as an action figure?
Before you joined the world as an action, before the John action figure was released.
In 83.
So the
He-Man showed up just before I did.
The toys came out.
And then when did the cartoon come out?
So, and I have to first of all, I have to give some credit. There's an excellent documentary on, it's currently streaming on Netflix called Power of Grayskull. And it goes all the way back into the creation of He-Man. It goes all the way back to the mid-'70s and the roots of He-Man and what set the He-Man action figures apart from the rest of the action figure world. So the He-Man cartoon series debuted, the toys came out, and what made the toys unique was not only their make, that you could like swivel the waist and you can move the arms. It was more actionable than your standard action figure. They also came with little comic books that set up the story. And then they went, so then pretty soon, and the toys were a big success. And so they soon went into production on the cartoon, and the company Filmation produced the cartoon. And what they added was kind of defining the world and the rules of the world, including adding the Prince Adam aspect of it. The fact that He-Man is not just this barbarian who came from the jungles, which was his original backstory. And not, as I wrote down on a note, I don't know at what point I wrote this down, but I was like, what if his name on the birth certificate was supposed to be Herman, but like part of the R got scratched out, and they were like, okay, He-Man. But it's neither here nor there.
And just quickly, I want to address, what a ridiculous name, He-Man.
Yes, but so this is why I loved this documentary, is because they kind of talk about, and the names for the toys in general tend to be ridiculous. Like Skeletor is probably higher up on the list of creativity, but like, all right, we've got a guy who's kind of a skunk. What do we call him? Skunkor. We've got a man who's made of moss. What should we call him? Moss Man? But
one thing that I found funny, and this is in the movie, and you can let me know if these were actually characters in the television series or the action figures. But when Eva Lynn, which is Skeletor's right hand woman,
is Boo.
when she is introducing the 4 mercenaries that she has found to find He-Man in the Masters of the Universe, which, first of all, I'm pretty sure that this moment is parodied in Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, when he's introducing the names of the people on the team. But she, much in the same way that Ben Stiller's character does in Dodgeball, first introduces Blade, which is, of course, a guy that has knives and swords. And then
not the Blade of the
Marvel
not Wesley
comics.
Snipes. Not Wesley Snipes.
No. And then there was Karg, Sarad, and then Beastman. And it's like, really?
Well, but
couldn't have done something a little bit more creative with that?
But Beastman was the only one of them that was originally, and Beastman was one of the original
That's what I was
toys.
wondering.
And Beastman
which is like, that's so lazy.
It was, I mean, he was really like, all right, imagine just like a rabid, pissed off Sasquatch, and that was...
Right.
But so the other characters, and the guy who played Blade was also the sword play choreographer, and he was kind of the sword master on
And that's
set.
Anthony DeLongis.
Yeah. He shaved his head for the role, in fact. But I always found the one that always stuck out to me. And by the way, so I had the action figures, except for I don't remember there being an action figure based on Karg. And Karg always struck me as, it's kind of like, and I've never actually seen the musical Cats, but I've been around musical theater enough to know enough about it. But that Karg was kind of that outcast cat, the one that was like
The mangy one.
I don't like the mangy rabid one who's like, I am not singing and dancing with any of you. And Karg was like the cat's reject who ended up in Masters of the Universe.
So just looking at he-man.org, he-man.org, there is a Karg action figure. I'm trying to see if it says when this was released.
87.
It was released for the movie?
Well, Karg was a character created for the movie. Karg.
Oh, it for sure was. Okay.
Yeah, and Sarad and Blade were all created for the movie. I think Blade was originally supposed to be Trapjaw.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they couldn't. You have to remember, this is 1987 when the movie came out, and this was the first of these cartoon/toys to get a live action movie. It would be another 20 years before Transformers.
Yeah. And then G.I. Joe after that.
So, but to get back to, I just want everyone to understand this, and we'll be posting this photo, but so I did a little research, and I remembered one of the. Do you want to describe what I'm showing?
Okay,
you?
So when Dan was about, you want to say 5?
So this is 6. This is
6.
So the cartoon series debuted September 1983. This is
okay.
October 1983.
Gotcha. So for Halloween in 1983, Dan was He-Man, and certainly a homemade costume, thanks to our mother.
Yeah, this was kind of like, I think this might have been the first of like her really awesome costumes.
She had a few winners, that's for sure, and this was one of them.
I think the peak might have been the year that Scott was the taco and I was the Steve Garvey baseball card.
Yeah.
Also, neither here nor there.
Of the San Diego Padres. So bear in mind also, and this is a major shout out to our mother, I was really just a few months old, and my mother went, to lengths to make a custom He-Man costume for Dan. So shout out to her. And also what's great about this photo, and we're going to post this on our social media, is the fantastic wood panel wall in the background.
Oh, definitely. There's so many things I love about this. And I remember this costume so clearly because, first of all, the cardboard sword covered in duct tape to look silver.
Is that duct tape or just aluminum foil?
I remember it being duct tape, and this is, a long time ago, and I usually can't remember like why I crossed the room, but for some reason I have a clear memory of that being. Mom, please let us know. Email us at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
So I loved the thermal underwear, the long johns stuffed with, I want to say cotton to
beef you up.
To give my 6-year-old body the appearance of being super jacked.
I always thought you were just really jacked that fall.
Oh, yeah. No. Well, I started lifting weights when I was in kindergarten, and I got really into it that summer. So at the beginning of first grade, I was just jacked. And then I don't know what happened that year, but...
You were like, I got these 2 little brothers. I need something to stand out.
Yeah.
I gotta get ripped. So you're talking just briefly. You're talking about your uncanny memory from this time. Do you have a memory from the first time you saw Masters of the Universe?
I do. So
it's my favorite.
I have. There's so much to talk about before we even get to the movie. So such as we've been discovering on the show, many of the movies we're talking about secretly belong to the Marvel universe.
Right.
He-Man is in the DC universe.
Yeah. Over the course of, I guess, He-Man's history, it has belonged to several different comic book publishers. At one point, Marvel was one, but mostly... What's up?
The documentary does not cover that.
On the Masters of the Universe, or let me see. I believe the Wikipedia page.
Because I saw there is a He-Man versus Superman. So,
so it very much exists in the DC universe.
So DC cinematic universe. If you're looking to spice up your cinematic universe a little bit,
so
just saying,
yes.
He-Man might be the key. So
from December 82 to February 83, and then again from July 2012 to now, I guess, DC Comics published Masters of the Universe comics. From May 86 to May 88, Marvel published Masters of the Universe. And then from 86 to 90, London Edition magazines. Not sure exactly what that is. And then November 2002 to December 2004 was Image Comics. And actually, London Edition magazines had the most issues with 103. Marvel had 14, Image Comics had 26, and then DC has had a total of 37. But it is currently a DC situation.
That's awesome. And then now we've got our crossover link between DC and Marvel. Okay. So and also Filmation was the company that did the Superman cartoon in the 60s. So
interesting.
Yeah. So getting back to the 1987 film, you asked if I remembered seeing that. And and I believe if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I do. It was the three of us. It was you, me, and Scott, and it was when we were in California. It was released August 87, shortly before we took our trip there. And Grandma Seal, I remember being in Palm Springs. I might be wrong, and I don't remember if like Mom and Dad took us, or if Grandma Seal took us, or who it was. But I remember going to the movie theater. It was a multiplex, and I don't think we had many multiplexes out like where we lived at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
But I remember, and what I remember, aside from like the lights alongside the aisle, which were different than what I'd ever seen. Yeah, I know. I remember the posters in the lobby, and I don't know if these were other movies that were playing there or if they were just being advertised as coming attractions, but I remember the posters for The Lost Boys.
Uh-huh.
Predator.
That tracks. Okay.
The Untouchables. Full Metal Jacket. I think those are the ones that I really remember seeing in that lobby.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
What did you have for lunch on Monday? Moving on.
Some leftover.
Okay, so
no, I remember. Come on. I had some leftover chicken with spinach and a rice ball.
Okay,
a risotto
all right.
ball.
So you are able to remember recent things as well as things from when you were just a small child. Got it.
Yeah, but honestly, truth be told, I could have any day fired off those movie posters more quickly than I could have my lunch from the day before. So
Yeah. So
it's a fair point.
So something else that we definitely need to talk about is Canon Films.
Another wonderful documentary.
Right.
Electric
so
Boogaloo.
in 2014 there were 2 documentaries released. Let me see if I can pull up. There was Electric Boogaloo, which is like the story of Canon Films that I know was on Netflix.
Yeah. I saw it on Netflix.
And then, oh wait, let me see. There was another one that came out. I think it was like it focused more. This was an Israeli documentary. What was it called?
Menachem
Oh,
Golan, King of the World.
The Go-Go Boys, the inside story of Canon Films. And it's Golan, I'm sorry, it's Go-Go because Golan and Globus were the, I think, Israeli cousins who were the main figures in Canon's history. And did one of them direct Masters of the Universe?
No.
No.
Yeah, Masters of the Universe was Gary Goddard.
Gary Goddard, a different Go. So Canon Films, just briefly, and I do encourage everybody to definitely watch Electric Boogaloo, which is named because they are the ones that released Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, because what they really did is they would buy up these properties that were moderately successful and they'd get them on the cheap somehow and then just release sequels. And famously, I think most famously, they did this with Death Wish. So all of the like Death Wish sequels were Canon Films, and they also worked a lot with Chuck Norris.
Right.
They did Delta Force. I think that was their big like Chuck Norris one.
So they did that. I think they did it like some of the other early, like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren. I think they did another one with Dolph Lundgren after Masters.
Was he in Cyborg?
No, I think
I don't think so.
that was Van Damme, but I'm pretty sure that Cyborg, interesting piece of trivia, was originally the script for Cyborg was adapted from the script for Masters of the Universe 2.
That's right. Yeah. So why don't I'm just gonna read this little bit from the Wikipedia page for Canon Films. So Canon Films or maybe this was for Masters of the Universe, but Canon Films intended to create a Masters of the Universe sequel, indicated by the end credits with a reveal that Skeletor survives. The sequel, titled Masters of the Universe 2, Cyborg, was written and followed He-Man, who returned to Earth to battle Skeletor, who has left Earth as a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and the film was to feature Trapjaw and She-Ra. Pro surfer Laird Hamilton was originally to replace Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, and the only aspect known about the sequel screenplay was that He-Man would have returned to Earth and was disguised as a professional quarterback. Very Flash Gordon. With a low budget of $4.5 million, the sequel was to be directed by Albert Puen, consecutively with the aborted Spider-Man movie. The project was abandoned when Canon would not pay Mattel's fees, Mattel, which created He-Man. The production instead utilized the already made costumes and sets for the low-budget sci-fi film Cyborg. So much information there.
Yeah.
So they had the rights. So Canon had the rights to Spider-Man, and they had until a certain like date to create a Spider-Man movie, or else the rights would then go back to Marvel, and that's what ended up happening. And then Sam Raimi directed the Spider-Man movie that kind of launched back like Spider-Man back into everybody's
it was huge
minds and hearts and screens. So I love that. That's so super interesting. Canon Films was just a mess. Like the movies that they made were crazy, and Masters of the Universe was supposed to be like their real foray into like a true blockbuster movie,
a summer blockbuster. Yeah,
and I think it came in like third opening weekend, right?
Did it? I know
believe it did.
it came in like 65th for the year, narrowly outgrossing the number 69 Canon Pictures Superman 4. I'm curious to see what came in first and second that weekend, and if they were.
Let me see if I can pull that up.
So The Living Daylights looks like is it right? So The Living Daylights, James Bond, in its second week came in number 1. That was the first James Bond film I saw in the theater.
Oh, okay.
Saw it at Blue Star
Very
Cinemas.
interesting.
Stakeout at number 2. Oh, we should
Right,
talk about
Stakeout.
Stakeout sometime.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
So
Back to the Beach. Back to the Beach opened the same weekend as Masters of the Universe.
Back to the Beach, another big movie for us growing up.
Yeah, came in at number 8 that weekend. Who's That Girl also released that weekend. Came in at number 10. So yeah, no, great.
Yeah, so Canon Films wanted to have like a huge blockbuster movie. This was going to be their meal ticket, essentially. They have had other movies that do fall into kind of like the cult classic category, like The Apple, featuring Catherine Mary Stewart.
One of our favorites on
Well,
here.
I mean,
and
she's already been in 2 movies that we've talked about, Weekend at Bernie's and Last Starfighter.
And I'm pretty sure The Apple is actually streaming either on, I think on Netflix, possibly Prime. I'm not sure.
It's a crazy movie. Everybody needs to watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty wacky. I mean, I haven't seen it, but it looked pretty wacky from the Canon Films documentary.
Right. So, yes, everybody should just watch Electric Boogaloo. That's the most important thing you need to do right now. I would say you might want to just skip Masters of the Universe, though, because rewatching it, man, is it a pile of garbage.
You see, I enjoyed rewatching it.
I mean, for nostalgia purposes, it really scratches that itch, but like, seriously, it is garbaggio.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best movie ever, but I think that when I sat down to watch it for the first time in a few years, I was a little, I was like, no, my childhood is going to be ruined, and I'm gonna watch this movie, because I feel like the last time I watched it, I was like, yeah, this isn't quite as fun as it was when I was a kid, and maybe it was that expectation, but I kind of had a good time having it on.
Well,
I know Dolph Lundgren at the time felt like ashamed of doing it, of playing an action figure. He kind of acknowledges that it was cool. That was before it was cool. But
yeah,
and they were going to overdub his lines in this, and I actually really like that accent. I
thought that they did overdub his lines.
No, they didn't. They either ran out of money or time or both. I think, knowing Canon Films, it was both.
I was always under the impression that it was overdubbed.
No.
Anyway, so there are a few really incredible things about this movie. First of all, a very young appearance by Courtney Cox, but also, what's up?
No, it was just funny because I think as she appears on screen, I was like, what had she really done before that, other than like the Bruce Springsteen video? And then in the storyline, she's moving to New Jersey. I was like, oh, she's going to be with Bruce.
Yeah.
They hit it off when he pulled her up on stage to dance with her,
right.
to Dancing in the Dark.
So another important thing to watch this movie for is Frank Langella, who plays Skeletor and gives like everything he's got acting wise to this insane role.
And I highly recommend watching The Power of Grayskull for the interviews with Frank Langella.
I have to check that out.
So I would say my favorite part of the interview with him is when he talks about how he was in awesome shape and was excited because he thought he would get to show off like his abs in the Skeletor costume. Frank Langella was was really excited to play Skeletor, and he talks about, a lot of the lines that he came up with or that he took from Shakespeare to make Skeletor this kind of grandiose villain. And he really knocks it out of the park.
Some of his lines were just like astonishing for the movie that they were in. And
those are probably the ones written by Shakespeare.
That's true, but I believe that there's actually one that was in maybe a He-Man comic, where Skeletor asks He-Man, "Is being good as lonely as being evil?" And I was like, what is happening here?
I can't remember where he says he got it from, but Langella talks about that line.
Oh, okay. I love it because just watching it, everything about that movie is bananas. And then he says that line, and that like really stopped me in my tracks, where it's just like, what is happening here? What is going on?
The quality of the movie is definitely elevated whenever Frank Langella is on screen. All due respect to everyone else in the cast, including Billy Barty.
Billy Barty,
Orko surrogate.
Right. People might remember Billy Barty from, he was in Willow. We definitely know him most from UHF, where he plays Noodles McIntosh.
You may also know him as one of the Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, but like, honestly, UHF
you probably
is
wouldn't
probably
recognize
a more
him,
important movie. Right.
But it's an interesting fact.
But also Billy Barty gives it his all, and he does a great job playing Gwildor, which is a clear Yoda ripoff.
It's
visually.
Orko meets Yoda. Yeah.
Well, so
definitely.
I don't remember which of the Golan or whatever cousins it was, but I believe that when this movie came out, they said it was going to be the Star Wars of the 80s, which is funny because the Star Wars movies were the Star Wars of the 80s. And
no, wait, doesn't it say that on like I feel like it says that on like the DVD cover, like the VHS cover, like that's the quote, like the critics quote.
It's the dumbest thing you can say.
I would say Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi were the Star Warses of the 80s, literally.
And very much so. And the like Skeletor's like foot soldiers, they all have like a Darth Vader-y look to them.
They're stormtroopers.
They're stormtroopers, but they have the like all black with the like kind of pith helmet-y Darth Vader look.
You know why they had to have all those? Because Mattel told Canon Films that He-Man was not, they weren't allowed to kill anyone. They weren't allowed to kill any like people. So they had to put in these like cyborg drone robots that.
Yeah, I mean, they never really address what they are, if they're people or not.
I feel like they call them something. It's like, send in the battle gods. And it's not clear. We don't know.
Right. So just to give a brief synopsis of Masters of the Universe, we go into this world after like crazy stuff happens. Like there's already been a whole big war, and we get into it when Skeletor has kind of taken over Castle Grayskull.
A pretty unusual start to this movie about He-Man, which starts with the villain winning.
Yeah. There's like no backstory about who is who and what's going on and like what's really happening. All that we know is that Skeletor has imprisoned the sorceress, and he, by like moonrise, will be able to extract all of her powers. And we also learn that there's this device called the Cosmic Key. There are two of them. Skeletor has one, and using this Cosmic Key, you can travel through space and time.
Which is how he gets into Grayskull. And the inventor of the Cosmic Key is Gwildor, played by Billy Barty, who is a locksmith and inventor, very eccentric little critter. And he has one other Cosmic Key, so they are
trying to imprison him to be able to use his skills. And he gets free, gets linked up with He-Man, Man of Arms, and Teela, the good people in the entire universe, apparently.
Yeah, pretty much. Man at Arms. Duncan.
Man at Arms.
Duncan,
Right.
Man at Arms of the Eternian Guard.
Of course. Right. Eternia is the planet that they live on. And when it is, so they use He-Man uses the cosmic key to get into Grayskull to try to defeat Skeletor, but instead they are kind of in a bind. Gwildor punches in keys at random to get them out of there, and they end up 1987 Earth. And
whenever you punch in keys at random, you're going to end up on Earth.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So the idea at this point is that Skeletor needs to get to wherever they are to get A, the cosmic key, and B, He-Man and He-Man's sword, so that he can complete the process of extracting the powers. And He-Man needs to also then get back in order to prevent Skeletor. It's pretty complicated and weird.
Yeah. And the sword, so the sword is like, and this goes back into the toys, into the cartoon, the sword is what contains the power of Grayskull, and whoever holds, like the original toys, He-Man had one half of the sword and Skeletor had the other half that was like front and back, and they would clip together, and whoever had the sword so it was kind of like Grayskull was like this, was neutral. Even though the cartoon kind of presented it as the good guys' territory, it really was kind of like it was this neutral seat of power that two opposing parties are fighting for. And yeah, one wants to use it for good, one wants to use it for evil, obviously, so on and so forth.
So meanwhile on Earth, Courtney Cox's character, Julie, is about to leave. I'm assuming they're in California.
They are in California.
Yeah, they're in California. She's leaving to move to New Jersey to get away from her life because her parents died in a plane crash. She blames herself. So she is leaving her whole life behind, including her boyfriend, Kevin. And they are like getting together to have their last date, their last night, which honestly seems like a pretty crappy night for Julie, because she's just going to be going to Kevin's sound check, and it's just like, really?
Well, that's their final night together also includes a bucket of fried chicken and a trip to the cemetery.
Yeah, really cool stuff. But on their trip to the cemetery, they find, lo and behold, the cosmic key in like a smoky crater.
Yeah.
And so he finds the key. He's a musician, and he thinks it's like a Japanese synthesizer. Gets really excited about it, and by pressing the keys on it, he has, initiated the tracker that Skeletor's team uses to find where they are. And then it's just a battle on Earth to get the cosmic key, which, for those of you who are familiar with the movie and have a keen ear, the very beginning of this podcast begins with the sound of the cosmic key.
Because you are journeying into our world.
Yeah, when I was getting the theme stuff together, I was like, what can I put there? And it just seemed like an obvious decision to include the beautiful sound of the cosmic key.
It really did serve us well.
For sure. So, that's the plot.
So basically, you do have one thing that caught fans, I guess, off guard was this was not a live action version of the cartoon.
No.
This was and the scripts for Masters of the Universe movies had been set on Earth. That wasn't anything new. But if you're going to see this movie, the cartoon isn't set on Earth. It's set in Eternia. Right. They only travel to Earth at the end of the episode to teach you how to look both ways before crossing the street. Which it's funny hearing the writers for the show talk about those tags at the end. It's
Oh,
worth
I gotta
checking
watch
out.
this.
But
So-
so you don't have Prince Adam, you don't have King Randor or
You don't
Queen
have Orko.
Marlena. No Orko. So you're really left more with this, kind of the barbarian figure. I mean, now you could really you could do practically what they did with Chris Evans in the original Captain America movie. Have him wimpy and then make him big. The only thing I was like, how could they have done that then? I don't know. Have Cary Elwes as Prince Adam and then have him turn into Dolph Lundgren. But so there were a lot of things that you just couldn't do. So
Right.
it was very different. And you introduced these new characters.
Well,
But
yeah, and something else that should be noted about the cartoon series is that Prince Adam and He-Man, like, they just wear different clothes. They look exactly the same. Like, there's really no disguise or real transformation aside from, I guess, the power within.
Adam is less. It's Adam is not confident. He-Man is. There's a lot of just like psychology. If you watch these cartoons from like the adult perspective, there's a lot of psychology because Adam is. And I kind of always wondered if the show was kind of making a like kind of a secret, like a reach out to kids who, for whatever reason, felt like they weren't accepted. Even like there's at least one episode where Prince Adam doesn't feel like his father like recognizes his good qualities.
Really?
So yeah. So I always wondered. I thought I was like, did they? And in the documentary, there's no discussion of this whatsoever. But I always wondered if this was reaching out to those kids who didn't feel accepted, the boys who, and this was also the early 80s.
The boys
early
who had bowl
80s.
haircuts and bangs.
The boys who had bowl haircuts and bangs, but just like the kids who didn't really feel like they fit in and didn't feel confident and maybe didn't even feel that way at home to then become confident and to, lift that metaphorical sword and say, I have the power. And this was something that they did intend with the toys, was to appeal to that sense of kids wanting to have power and wanting to have not just power, but power over adults, and to feel like I have this power inside of me. And I mean, like one of the commercials, even like the kid like tackles his father with a He-Man figure, and the father's got like the Skeletor figure. And
Yeah.
so it's really interesting, but I always wondered because I was like, well, Adam, I thought the way that he dressed and the way that he acted, the way that he talked, I was like, this is the kid who it's I'm stealing from Glee, but like the character, the kid who's into musical theater, whose father wants him to play football.
Right.
So, or anyone who just doesn't feel accepted. So I feel like I feel like that whole I have the power idea really what ran through that series, and that empowerment, that idea of empowerment.
Sure. Well, and I should also note that growing up, He-Man was used by our parents as a tactic to get us to eat our dinner by encouraging us to take a He-Man bite
Yes.
of our food.
Yes. We had to take He-Man bites.
Yeah.
That was true.
I feel so manipulated.
Yeah. Probably should have done some He-Man exercising too. So getting back to, I guess, to the film and to the property and like what is going. So we know that there's plans, but this is not the first time there was talk of a John Woo He-Man movie. I feel like in the mid 2000s, there was. I feel like there's always been a lot of talk of a new He-Man movie, but now I don't know if it's just that social media amplifies rumors, or if it seems like this is really moving forward with this new He-Man. We don't know what the plot is going to be. IMDb just has a very simple summary. It basically like All right,
Well-
He-Man's a good guy and he's fighting Skeletor.
That's kind of why I was looking forward to doing this movie now, before there is really much information, as not to taint our imagination. But the only other thing that's going on right now is that there is a She-Ra Princess of Power animated series, which is, it just makes so much sense right now to be doing the female driven superhero essentially.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure if this new Masters of the Universe movie either will involve She-Ra or will lead to an expansion of the Masters of the universe
Right.
of adding She-Ra. First, I will say I was inspired, and I'm proposing, I think that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe will be the fall play at the school where I teach next year. I've been inspired by North Bergen High School,
Yeah, the
the
alien.
production of Alien. But that was what I was thinking. I was like, okay, this is the one. This is what I have He-Man and do He-Man. No, that's not where
Yeah.
I see this going.
I mean, it'd be interesting. It certainly would be controversial.
I would have them all wearing long johns stuffed with cotton. No one would be running around in a
duct tape
loincloth
swords.
and duct tape swords and just a big helmet for Skeletor. Just a giant, I don't know. Big
Yeah.
helmet. So
Yeah, tell me what your thoughts are.
well, my thoughts have come a long way, because initially I was just like, no, what are you like? How are you going to take this cartoon and turn this into a movie now with the character with a silly name like He-Man? As I was watching the movie, though, I was thinking about all of these references they make to this has always been between us, and He-Man and
Right.
Skeletor are constantly saying, like, this has been, Skeletor refers to it as a lifelong battle, which I feel like he's getting a little hyperbolic there. I don't think He-Man and Skeletor have been fighting each other since, like, they were born, but
Right.
it seems like there's a history there. So I'm not saying make a direct prequel to the 1987 canon films Masters of the Universe,
Right.
but why not go back? Why not show us let's give us the beginning. We've never seen, how did this feud happen? Where did Skeletor come? Like, who is Skeletor? And I think so there have been so many animated reboots of He-Man, and some that have taken it more seriously and gone in more serious. And I think there's one that does give an origin story for Skeletor and kind of shows his face. So why not go there? If you're going to make a Masters of the Universe movie, especially if you're planning it as a franchise, which isn't everything these days, why not start at the beginning? Why not start at the beginning of the story? Give us, and I don't know if you're going to have a Prince Adam He-Man thing. I kind of feel like that's the way they're going, because this Noah Centineo looks like he's kind of like, he could look jacked, but he could also look smaller.
Like
so
a
I feel
normal
like,
person.
yeah, well, but a normal person in good shape. So
Yeah.
So they could do that, and that would be fine. And I think Kenneth Branagh has always been my choice for King Randor.
Okay.
And it was when I saw Kenneth Branagh's Thor film, I especially the Asgard scenes, I thought to myself, I was like, this is He-Man. This should be He-Man. This should be
Yeah. I
Kenneth
was thinking
Branagh's
the
He-Man movie.
I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it last night. Just how reminiscent of that first Thor movie it all really felt. I mean, aside from being dropped on Earth out of nowhere from this kind of magical planet. Yeah.
Oh, right. And they
No,
have
I
to
had the same
find,
thought.
isn't there like a cosmic key?
Yeah, it's like the Tesseract or whatever it is. It's one of the.
Oh, we're going to get so many angry emails from Marvel fans. So
Okay, look, we're not saying that Thor is a ripoff of Masters of the Universe, but like read between the lines.
Yeah, so that was what I thought when I saw the Thor movie was, and then I was like, well, damn it, now it can't happen. We can't have Kenneth Branagh just do the He-Man movie and tell him, hey, like, can you just do it the way that you did Thor? Mm-hmm. So I don't know creatively who I feel like I'd be interested to see, and I'm pretty sure they have a director lined up, but I like Duncan Jones, and I didn't see Warcraft, but from what I saw, it kind of looked like.
I heard it was pretty good.
But between, I guess, the storytelling.
And by the way, in Duncan Jones, he did Moon.
Source Code.
Yeah. Source Code, which is a lot of fun, and we should have probably mentioned Source Code when we talked about Groundhog Day, because that's another one where it's somebody kind of reliving the same thing over and over again. It's very enjoyable. Check it out.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was kind of thinking of him, and I was thinking of, because they still haven't cast Skeletor. So I had some ideas. The first thought in my head for Skeletor, and I'm going to say CGI or not, Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Or Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, he can do anything.
Those are the two names. I was like, it's got to be one of the two. I don't know. What are you thinking? Who are you thinking?
Well, Frank Langella's still hanging around.
He would totally do it.
He would totally do it. He was amazing on The Americans. So it's not like he's lost his chops over time. He is still killing it.
He might not have the abs anymore, though.
He might not have the abs, but one of my ideas was to kind of maybe flip things on their side a little bit, because that one line really stuck with me about being evil, being really lonely. Maybe it's also number 3 in the Analyze This movies. It's Analyze the Other Thing with Skeletor, who's just going through some stuff. We get Billy Crystal in there, and get him on the couch. Let's have him talk through his ish.
Does Billy Crystal accidentally rear end like Panther?
Yes, he does. That's exactly what happens. He has he gets busted, and he has all these like anger management issues, so he has to work them out with Billy Crystal. Well, my other thought is if there was to be, I love Frank Langella as Skeletor so much, like he just did commit so much, and I was thinking about like who would be like a younger equivalent to Frank Langella in that way. And I mean, Ray Fiennes came to mind. I don't know if that's too Voldemort-y, but but he's just so good that he definitely popped into my head.
Yeah. What about this feels kind of lame, but I'm like, what about who's in the Game of Thrones cast? Who could we cherry pick from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, that's right. Who's going to be out of work pretty soon? The other thought that I had was to do something like completely different and go like Jesse Eisenberg
as Skeletor.
Yeah, I know he did Lex Luthor already, but
to me that also kind of it reminds me of Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Cobra Commander.
Ooh, that is true. Like I kind of forgot that he was Cobra Commander, even when I was watching him play Cobra Commander, because you don't really see him, but.
Yeah, it's the other story idea I was thinking of, and it's if they had not already done the 1987 Masters of the Universe, it was like taking an approach like the Brady Bunch movie did. Would have been right. So
just make
funny.
It really campy. Well, the other thing that could be argued is like, what if they could get the main original cast back together? I know that Dolph Lundgren is kind of ashamed of it, but like maybe it could be his way to make it right.
I feel like Dolph Lundgren at this point, also it's a different game. Like there's a different prestige in doing this type of film. So
Yeah,
I don't know if Dolph Lundgren would be hard to
the
convince.
thing is, why does He-Man have to necessarily be the really main part of a Masters of the Universe movie? It's not called He-Man. It's called Masters of the Universe. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be that one person. That's the focus of it.
So I guess you could do kind of the long-awaited Masters of the Universe sequel and have the older He-Man kind of reminds me of the Batman. I forget what the series is called, but where Batman is kind of older. So you could
also, yeah, I mean, it's also kind of like Into the Spider-Verse, where it's Spider-Man's, a little older, and there's kind of a new, younger Spider-Man, and it's like there can be more than one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so and then what would you do as far as the villains go?
I mean, Skeletor is just a skeleton,
Yeah, that's true. Skeletor doesn't have there's not like an age, really.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If in Masters of the Universe, Skeletor was like, and on my 35th birthday this year.
You know who might be a good Skeletor? Damian Lewis.
Huh. Yeah, I could see that.
Damian Lewis. He's really versatile.
Damian Lewis, who is in Homeland,
Billions.
Yeah. Right.
So he's one, and there was somebody else that just popped into my head and then popped back out. That would be an interesting choice for Skeletor. About Liev Schreiber.
Oscar Isaac, maybe.
There's always a place for Oscar Isaac.
We're putting him
films.
in everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Oscar, yes. Not as Skeletor for this, though.
What about Domhnall Gleeson? I know we've talked about him before.
Domhnall Gleeson, yeah, but then what the character he's playing in the new Star Wars movies,
yeah, it's true,
is actually more Skeletor-ish than
kind of just like kind of a buffoon, but in a leadership position. I don't know. I mean, I see. The thing is, like, anybody I think of where it's like, well, they kind of played that role in this franchise or that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what about someone like Woody Harrelson or like Nicolas Cage?
Okay. So, yeah, Nicolas Cage as Skeletor would be amazing.
Yeah.
I would rather see Nicolas Cage as Skeletor, though, in like a one-man show.
Or the Analyze This sequel.
Yeah. I just like Nicolas Cage is Skeletor.
Yeah, and honestly, I bet he'd do it. And I bet he'd kill it, too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know. So I definitely, I think I've come around to the possibilities of a new Masters of the Universe movie. I think they could certainly do it. I'm afraid, I guess what I was worried about at a certain point was that a new Masters of the Universe movie would end up being like a PG rated or PG-13 rated version of 300.
Yeah.
Which I'm not as worried about that anymore because I feel like that kind of style.
Right.
I mean, that's Zack Snyder, but it's also like that whole like style of Sin City and all that was kind of a.
It had its like moment
thing.
in time. Yeah. Yeah. After like 2009, that was kind of done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm totally okay with there being a new a revival of the Masters of the Universe in form of a movie, because I know that it has been living on in other ways. Honestly, I feel like whatever would happen, like She-Ra has to be a big part of it, because I feel like She-Ra and He-Man kind of, at least in my memory, always were mentioned together. She played a huge role in the television series, and it's kind of bizarre that she was not included in the Masters of the Universe movie. I mean,
which originally I think she was going to be. Yeah,
it seems like Tila, and honestly, like Tila was a great character, and there were times when I was like, it's kind of crazy that like Man-at-Arms is wearing all of this crazy armor, and Tila is Man-at-Arms' daughter. Is that right?
In
the movie.
Definitely in the movie, possibly
Yeah.
in the cartoons. I actually do have a casting suggestion for Tila.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on one second. So
go ahead.
Tila's wearing basically like a leotard with like one piece of armor, and Man-at-Arms is wearing like all this other stuff, and it's like, shouldn't they all be wearing the same amount of armor? But then I thought about that, and I was like, man, that's kind of like a sexist move. But then you look at He-Man, and he's wearing nothing. And it's like, all right, that kind of balances it out. It's this kind of, yeah, that argument doesn't really hold much weight. So what would be your idea for Tila casting?
So yeah, no, and I can't believe this didn't occur to me sooner. So WWE superstar Becky Lynch, she is set to be part of the main event of WrestleMania 35, the first women's main event with Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair, daughter of Ric Flair. But Becky Lynch she's got a lot of great personality. She's like physically, she's muscular and fit. She's strong. She's a redhead. I mean, not that you can't dye hair red, but I think that just her aptitude for stunt work and action, and her acting ability, which you do get to see when you watch pro wrestling.
Right.
I really think she'd be, if she was looking to cross over into films, and likewise, you could end up seeing someone like a Dave Bautista fit into this movie easily.
Sure.
As perhaps a Man-at-Arms or Moss Man. He'd be a good Moss Man.
Yeah, I mean, casting He-Man though would be tough. And I mean, they picked this one person. I have no idea anything about him, but like, honestly, trying to think about like who else you would pick, I really don't even know. I mean, picking Dolph Lundgren was an interesting choice because at that time he was still, not very well known.
Yeah. Rocky IV.
Rocky
I think
IV,
that was it.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought that he was kind of great. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't have picked anybody else to play He-Man at the time. But
no,
I think that now, because people aren't getting big the way that they used to, it kind of changes things a little bit. I mean, you certainly have very physically fit people, and you have people like The Rock who are just like gigantic people who are also good at acting, but you can't just put The Rock in everything that calls for a big guy.
Yeah. I guess same thing with Dave Bautista, and on second thought, Guardians of the Galaxy would probably rule him out for Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, it depends on what the role would be.
Well, not if you're going to end up having a Marvel DC crossover with you as the Link.
Yeah, that's true.
There you run into a problem.
That is a problem. Well, anyway, I feel like we've said our piece about Masters of the Universe. And before we move on to the announcement for what we're going to do on the next episode, there are a couple of reboot news items. One of them being around The Craft. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
They're rebooting The Craft.
This is the portion of the show when John tells me things that are news to me. That's what this is.
Yeah, sometimes I don't send you all the articles that I see about this stuff. But Zoe Lister-Jones is writing and directing The Craft. She did a movie. She's like a kind of like an indie movie director. She did a movie called Band-Aid with Adam Pally. Very enjoyable. It's about a couple who is having problems, and rather than talking about it, they write songs about their problems and get popular. Anyway,
cool.
the other bit of news, and I can't verify this with a reliable source, but I did see that it is possible that a reboot may be happening, and I'm trying to keep this as vague as possible, of Troop Beverly Hills.
I did see that the cast reunited for the 30th anniversary.
The cast did reunite, and Jenny Lewis has a new album out. Everybody should check it out. It's very good. But I saw one article that hinted at some sort of knowledge of a reboot. That's all I know. It's all I'm willing to say. Perhaps we'll see more about this.
It's so funny how movies that really did not make an impact on their release have
Cult
just
classics.
have built these. And I don't know if we're ever going to talk about Troop Beverly Hills and devote a whole episode to it, but I do remember I did see it in the theater, and I remember where. So,
well, we can talk about that. Should we talk about Troop Beverly Hills, for real?
Yeah. All right.
And
so
talking about movies that really didn't have much of an impact, why don't you tell us about the movie that we're going to be talking about on the next episode?
So next episode's movie also was released in the summer of 1987 and made Masters of the Universe look like a blockbuster smash. We are talking, and I don't even know if this qualifies as a cult classic, but starring the rap trio The Fat Boys, 1987's Disorderlies.
I want to make this very clear. This is not an April Fool's joke. We are actually going to be talking about Disorderlies.
We are going all in with this one. It's our 10th episode. It's our 10th. Wait, no.
This is our 10th episode.
This is currently it's our 11th episode.
Got to celebrate the 11th somehow.
We have to talk about Disorderlies. I can't wait. I have a wonderful nostalgic story going along.
Oh my
with
God,
Disorderlies.
I love it.
And
So if you listening have any thoughts about the Disorderlies or Masters of the Universe, write to us, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. French Fry Phil, we haven't heard from you in a minute. Hope you're okay.
Oh, you haven't? Hold on. Hold on. I believe that we got an email from French Fry Phil.
Did we?
I am pretty sure I saw an email come in from French Fry Phil. Hold on a second. Sure enough, this afternoon.
Whoa.
So,
okay, I'm seeing it right now.
Phil, thank you. No, because it occurred to me. I said we have not heard from Phil, but he's so to quote Phil, had to play some podcast catch up, but great episodes. My two brothers and I watch Twins and Kindergarten Cop all the time. I saw Gremlins 2 before I ever saw the first one. Definitely not the way to do it. And fun fact, Phoebe Cates' daughter, Greta Klein, has a really good indie band called, and their name is Frankie Cosmos. So
cool. I'll check him out.
Since I'm reading this email for the first time just now, but you said his name and I thought, oh, wait, I saw an email come in before.
Well, then I take back what I just said about French Fry Phil. Thank you for listening, buddy. And by all means, if you want to write to us, we can read your email on the next episode and share your thoughts.
We'd love to hear from you.
It can't just be me and Dan all the time.
No, that's not good for anybody.
Or Scott in that one episode.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll have some more special guests coming on in some future episodes. So I can't promise anyone for Disorderlies.
So to close out this episode, it's only appropriate for us to give you the send-off that the residents of Eternia give to each other.
Because they don't say goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. They say good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey, Dan.
Good journey, John.
And the Masters of the Universe. I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, "By the power of Grayskull, I am mighty Battle Cat, and I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Only 3 others share this secret. Our friends, the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, and Orko. Together, we defend Castle Grayskull from the evil forces